My name is Jim, and I've spent an extensive amount of time on the road as a trucker. Ever since I completed trucking school, I've been driving long distances for hours every day. Even with the benefits, the pay wasn't the best. Well, it did pay enough to financially support my wife and me, but the stress it caused was unbearable. Being in a truck for hours at a time really forced me to make sacrifices. Occasionally, I'd miss out on family events like birthdays and holidays, which didn't feel good at all. On top of that, America is in desperate need of truckers to keep up with demand, which made the situation even worse. I drive for about 12 hours a day, and we couldn't stop for any reason until we reached our destination. Needless to say, I barely had any time with my family. One night, I was doing my nightly routine of driving to a warehousing complex to deliver some products for major retail businesses like Target and Best Buy. I was somewhere in a rural area of Wisconsin on this long, empty road that stretched across the state. It was around 6 a.m., and I was sipping my coffee, trying to keep myself awake. Being a full-time trucker, caffeine was my best friend. If you didn't have it, you were in trouble. So there I was, driving down this road, trying to keep myself awake, when I saw something big walk across the road from my headlights. I yelled and practically slammed my brakes, coming to a complete stop, all the while cussing to myself, thinking that I just hit a person or possibly a bear. At first, I did think it was a person, but then I remembered that whatever it was massive, 9 feet tall, with a bulky body, and the way it was walking looked abnormal. I stepped outside of the truck with my gun in hand, going to where I saw it. To my surprise, however, there was seemingly nobody on this road. Nobody walking, no roadkill, nothing. The only thing I did see was faint tire marks on the road from me hitting the brakes too hard. I called out for anybody who might have been nearby, but got no response, other than the sound of the wind picking up and the truck engine. I got back inside and continued my route, managing to finish it within a few hours. But I couldn't get what I had just seen off my mind. Later that same day, I called up one of my fellow truckers and told him about what I had just seen on the road. It turns out that he had experienced similar things and that it was likely a hallucination, given that I was tired. Thankfully, I have a camera that sits next to the interior and was able to capture a brief second of this creature before it went out of frame. The photo will be on screen now. As you can see, the camera quality isn't that great, but it was likely due to the condensation on the front windshield. Because it was a single road with a forest on opposite sides, there was a pretty good chance that it was an animal. My only question is, what kind of animal, 9 feet tall, walks on 2 legs? I don't know if it was a person. I don't know if it was Bigfoot. One thing I do know is that I wasn't imagining it. This incident occurred approximately 5 years ago when I was employed as a trucker for an independent contractor. It was a lucrative job that provided enough financial stability for myself and my family. Despite the attractive pay and benefits, truckers often encounter challenges, including encounters with rude individuals and the stress of long hours behind the wheel. This particular incident took place during the winter of 2018, around 8 p.m. I had been assigned a specific route to deliver manufacturing items to car dealerships situated in remote areas. These locations comprise towns, districts, and small settlements away from urban centers, typically rural regions requiring essential supplies, which constituted a significant portion of my job responsibilities. Navigating the slippery roads due to heavy snowfall demanded extra caution to prevent accidents. As I monitored the fuel gauge and realized the tank was low, I made a mental note to refuel soon. Fortunately, there were several truck stops along the route. About 20 minutes later, I pulled into one of these stops to refuel. Each trucker was equipped with a fuel card issued by the company, facilitating payment for fuel. While waiting for the tank to fill, I noticed a man pacing near a small building adjacent to the truck stop. He seemed lost in thought, gazing up at the sky with his hands in his pockets. Initially, I dismissed it as someone merely pondering, focusing on my phone while waiting. Suddenly, I sensed movement and observed the man slowly approaching me. He didn't resemble a fellow trucker or employee, but appeared more like someone experiencing homelessness. Given the remote location of the station, his presence seemed out of place. He brazenly requested money, but I politely declined, citing my hurry to resume my journey. Despite my refusal, he persisted, prompting me to offer him a $5 bill in a bid to hasten his departure. Reluctantly, he accepted the money and disappeared into the store. Annoyed but relieved, I anticipated completing refueling and resuming my journey. Upon returning to my truck, I realized the man had vanished, which didn't overly concern me. As I pulled out of the station and resumed driving, fatigue began to set in, despite sipping on coffee. Nonetheless, with the destination only an hour away, I remained determined to reach it on time. Approximately 30 minutes later, exhaustion weighed heavily on me as I continued driving. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand grip my face from behind, causing me to swerve off the road and into the snow. Reacting instinctively, I exited the vehicle and confronted the same man from the truck stop. A brief altercation ensued, during which I delivered several blows to his head. Rather than retaliating, he fled into the snow, disappearing from sight. Seizing the opportunity, I swiftly returned to my truck and accelerated down the road, relieved to have escaped unscathed. Upon reaching my destination, I contacted the police to report the incident. However, the remote location of the road made the prospect of locating the assailant slim. Despite the harrowing experience, I continued my trucking career for 2 more years before transitioning to work on an oil rig. While I haven't encountered anything similar since, stories from fellow truckers have highlighted the potential dangers inherent in the profession. This experience serves as a reminder to remain vigilant and aware of one's surroundings at all times. Back in my early 30s, I worked in transportation as a trucker in my home state of West Virginia. Sometimes we'd only spend so much time on the road, and that's if work opened up for us. Half the time, we'd pretty much end up just doing whatever we wanted with our spare time. However, when we were driving, we were on very tight schedules and had to be at our destinations in a timely manner. While it may seem like a chill job, it was sometimes stressful when you're driving for 11+ hours. Out of the 4+ years I've been a trucker, I've definitely encountered some weird experiences while on the road. These ranged anywhere from weird people when delivering goods to even a few people out on the road who were clearly drunk. In other words, nothing too bad ever occurred in terms of danger. There was this one time, however, where I saw something absolutely unexplainable during one of my trips. If I can remember correctly, it was a Tuesday night, and I'd been doing my usual routine of driving a full 10 hours to haul some items to a facility. I was driving down this long road somewhere in Ohio that stretched across the state, with a forest on both sides of it. I mainly did shifts near the woodland areas, so it wasn't uncommon for me to be driving on routes like these. It was surprisingly quiet on this road, as there were no other vehicles nearby, which made for a relaxed drive. It's around 4 a.m., and I'm around the halfway mark to my destination when I see a red rubber ball come bouncing in front of my truck from the woods. Naturally, I slam my brakes while yelling an "Oh crap!" coming to a complete halt. As I stopped the truck, my mind began racing about what the hell I just saw and what I should do. At this point, I'm 99% certain that there had to be a kid playing out there. That's when I stepped out of my truck to give the person a piece of my mind. As I get out, I then see that the road is completely empty. I was seemingly the only person on this road, and there wasn't anyone around who could have thrown that ball. However, that's when I remembered where the ball was thrown from and where I was. At that point, I knew there had to be someone in those woods who threw it, and I was definitely not going to stick around to find out. Mind you, I'm far out from the nearest town, so there weren't any houses around for miles. I get back into my truck and floor it down the road, with all these questions and scenarios flooding my head. At that point in time, I wasn't sure if the person who threw that ball was a kid, or if someone purposely did that to lure me into some trap. That scenario still sends a chill down my spine whenever I think about it. As I'm driving off, I could have sworn I saw a figure emerge from the tree line and onto the road. However, they didn't look like a kid, and they definitely weren't some animal. Because it was so dark out, I couldn't see their features or face, just a tall black silhouette standing in the middle of the road. Long story short, I completed my shift that night, and pretty much told my fellow truckers about it. A few had even told me that they've had similar experiences while en route. I've had a few other weird encounters, but this one definitely takes the prize. For whatever reason, this story still sticks with me while driving, as it's something I can't seem to forget till this day. I always wonder how everything would have played out if I had gone into those woods to look for anyone. One thing is for sure, I never took a route on that road again.